Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jay, and welcome to The Ship Life. So as usual, we do have a lot to unpack for today's cruise news. We have an update from Royal Caribbean as they have put out their COVID numbers dating between 2020 and now. I think it's important to kind of take a look at these numbers because I believe it does give a very positive sign for the cruising industry. I also want to talk about the potential for the removal of health and safety protocols. In order to do that, however, I want to look outside of cruising and see everything that's going on because I do believe this does give somewhat of an indication as far as what we could see for the cruising industry in the not so distant future. So recently, Royal Caribbean announced that between 2020 and right now, 1.3 million passengers have sailed on board their ships. However, to be fair, 2020 obviously was the big shutdown, and cruising didn't start up until around June or July of 2021. So as far as those numbers, you're talking about between June of 2021 and right now as opposed to looking at 2020. Now, also between that 1.3 million passengers that had sailed, only about 2,500 had tested positive for COVID. And that comes out to about 0.19%, which if you think about it in the grand scheme of things outside of cruising, that is a relatively small number. Now, Royal Caribbean also noted that when it came to the crew, because as we all know, especially with Omicron, it was wreaking havoc between the crew more so than the guests on board ships, 99% of those crew members were asymptomatic, leaving just 1% for people that had very mild cases according to Royal Caribbean. Now, just looking at all that information gathered as well, Royal Caribbean said that as far as the overall effective impact on their cruise line, it did relatively zero damage, except for the crew members that essentially had to go to the quarantine cruise ships. You know, there were crew members being sent from one ship to another ship, and that's obviously going to cause some mental stress. You had crew members that were kind of losing it over there to some degree, not all of them, but some. And then there was also the potential fear amongst the crew members of maybe getting sent home or basically reliving what they went through back in 2020. So when you look at all this information as a whole, obviously it does nothing but show that the health and safety protocols currently being implemented on board Royal Caribbean ships are working extremely well, maybe a little too well, which could indicate that, in my opinion, things could possibly be toned down in the not so distant future, depending on how things are going with cases on board ships. So there are a couple other things that I want to highlight throughout this video that I believe gives some type of an indication that we are starting to see a shift when it comes to COVID rules, protocols, regulations, pretty much everything involved with the pandemic in order to keep everybody safe. It looks like some places are starting to kind of wind down their rules and regulations. I want to look at Europe, for example. Greece just announced that starting today, travelers do not have to present a negative COVID test in order to enter the country. Now, this doesn't apply to everybody. As of right now, this only applies to EU and UK citizens, given that they have the proper certificate. However, it's a start. Now, if you look at other parts of Europe, I'm not going to name all the details. You do have countries like the UK, Ireland, Sweden, and Denmark, just to name a few, that have recently either toned down their health and safety protocols or got rid of all the restrictions altogether, which again, I believe this kind of signals that there is a shift happening, even though it's not happening literally everywhere in every single part of the world. Now, while all these countries are easing restrictions, depending on how you look at it, this is either bad or a potential accident waiting to happen. I'll leave that opinion up to you. We do have to look at the other side of the aisle, as Spain has just announced that in order to enter the country, you now not only have to be fully vaccinated, but you also have to get boosted. Then if you come over to, for most of us, our side of the world, the US and Canada, there is just big debacle and fight over testing policies as far as getting back and forth between Canada and the US. Now, will that be alleviated? I'm not exactly sure, but what is my point to all of this? Honestly, I could tell you guys that things are looking good, things are looking bad, and things are honestly more confusing than ever. However, I do believe this shift is kind of coming sooner rather than later due to the fact that you have so many places literally dropping all restrictions, which is going to make other places kind of scratch their head and wonder how they're evaluating this entire situation. Now, an important date that I want to point out for the United States will be March 1st. On March 1st, they're going to have the State of the Union address with the president, and a lot of people are starting to believe that he is going to announce an easing of restrictions over in the United States. Now, will this actually happen? Nobody can really say as far as right now, and I know a lot of people don't like speculation, but like I said, when you look at the other side of the world and how they're handling COVID and how they're easing restrictions, and the Omicron numbers are definitely going down and decreasing, we're kind of in a decline point, an announcement stating that we're going to ease restrictions over in the United States is definitely not off of the table. It could happen, it could not happen, but we'll have to wait and see. However, depending on how things are looking, it could be a monumental moment for cruising, as we could potentially go back to somewhat pre-pandemic levels and as far as the experience when it comes to cruising. But at this point, we'll have to see. I'm remaining optimistic personally, and I believe with the cruise lines like NCL saying they're going to have their entire fleet out by spring and Carnival saying they're going to have their entire fleet out by May, I believe around summertime we could potentially see a big change for cruising as we move forward. But I'm going to leave it right here, guys. Of course, don't just leave it to me and take my word for it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, on your way out, of course, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video so more people can see it. I appreciate every single one of you. I will be doing a live stream at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope to see all of you there. But until then, you guys take it easy.